accepting, rejecting various aspects of paintings. And of course, giving the initial idea that there should be paintings. But on the textual side of production, after writing the book, Srila Prabhupada was hardly involved at all. The editors rarely consulted him. He rarely, and if not consulted, he didn't give us any direction. Every now and then we would ask a question, but it was rare. There were so many editorial decisions that would have to be made in each chapter, word by word, sentence by sentence, and there was simply no scope for consulting Srila Prabhupada. Any question that you wanted to ask, most of the time, if he were in India, which he was a lot, it would take 2 weeks for your letter to reach him. If it wasn't forwarded from one center to another, and then another 2 weeks to come back. By that time, whatever your editorial question was probably too late. And production was going on. You were editing, you were typesetting, you were putting things into pages, and so rarely did we ask Prabhupada questions, either the English editors or the Sanskrit editors. We would try to work things out between us, between the editors, and that was it. Once the book was in pages, as far as I recall, we never sent copies to him for proofreading or approval or anything like that. It was just done. And as someone asked the other day, was he more interested in getting it right or getting it fast? And of course he was interested in both, but his emphasis was getting it fast. And getting it fast was in tension with such things as asking questions or sending Prabhupada copies to proofread. So that answers the question about Srila Prabhupada's involvement in the text. Of course, he made the greatest contribution by writing the book, but apart from that, and he would read the book, he would sit in his garden every afternoon in Los Angeles and listen to Krishna book. And as he said that he was sometimes amazed. He said, I haven't written this book. It's Krishna who's written it. Any questions about that? Okay, so let us begin with the introduction to Krishna book.
You're reading from the top.
From the introduction.
Introduction, Krishna book. Krishna, 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 Krishna. Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Krishna. Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Rakshamam. Krishna, 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 Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Pahi Mam. Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rakshamam. Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Pahi Mam. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 7.96. While attempting to write this book, Krishna, let me first offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, Om Vishnupada 108, Shri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada. Then let me offer my respectful obeisances to the Ocean of Mercy, Lord Shri Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself, appearing in the role of a devotee just to distribute the highest principles of devotional service. Lord Chaitanya began his preaching from the country known as Godesha, Godadesha, West Bengal. And as I belong to the Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya, I must...
Madhava is somebody else.
Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya, I must therefore offer my respectful obeisances to this disciplic succession of that name. This Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya is also known as the Brahma Sampradaya because the disciplic succession originally began from Brahma. Brahma instructed the sage Narada, Narada instructed Vyasadeva, and Vyasadeva instructed Madhva Muni or Madhvacharya. Sri Madhvendra Puri, the originator of the Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, was a sannyas, renunciate, who belonged to the Madhva Acharya disciplic succession. He had many renowned disciples, such as Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita Prabhu, and Ishvara Puri. Ishvara Puri happened to be the spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So let us offer our respectful obeisances to Ishvara Puri, Nityananda Prabhu, Sri Advaita Acharya Prabhu, Sri Vas Pandita, and Sri Gadadhara Pandita. Next, let us offer our respectful obeisances to Swarup Damodar, who acted as the private secretary to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And let us offer our respectful obeisances to Sri Vyasadeva Datta and the constant attendant of Lord Chaitanya, Sri Govind, and the constant friend of Lord Chaitanya, Mukunda, and also to Murari Gupta. And let us offer our respectful obeisances to the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Gopala Bhatta Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Raghunath Das Goswami. Krishna himself has explained in Bhagavad-Gita that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that whenever there are discrepancies in the regulated principles of man's religious life and a prominence of irreligious activities, he appears on this earthly planet. In other words, when Lord Shri Krishna appeared, there was a necessity of minimizing the load of sinful activities accumulated on this planet or in this universe. For the affairs of the material creation, Lord Mahavishnu, the plenary portion of Krishna, is in charge. Thus, when the Lord descends, the incarnation emanates from Vishnu. Mahavishnu is the original cause of the material creation, and from him Garbhodakshaya Vishnu expands, and then Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. Generally, all incarnations appearing within this material universe are plenary expansions from Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. Therefore, the business of minimizing the overload of sinful activities on this earth does not belong to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself. But when Krishna appears, all the Vishnu expansions join with him. Krishna's different expansions, namely Narayan, the quadruple expansion of Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, as well as partial plenary expansions like Matsya, the incarnation of a fish, and the Yuga avatars, incarnations for the millennium, and the Manvantara avatars, incarnations associated with the reigns of the Manus, all combine together and appear within the body of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna is the complete whole, and thus all plenary expansions and incarnations always live with him. Therefore, when Krishna appeared, Lord Vishnu was with him. Krishna actually appears in order to demonstrate his Vrindavan pastimes, and in this way attract the fortunate conditioned souls and invite them back home, back to Godhead. The killing of the demon in Vrindavan was carried out only by the Vishnu portion of Krishna. The Lord's abode is described in the Bhagavad-Gita 8th chapter, 20th verse, where it is stated that there is another eternal nature, the spiritual sky, which is transcendental to this manifested and non-manifested matter. The manifested world can be seen in the form of many stars and the planetary systems, such as the sun and moon. But beyond this, there is a non-manifested portion which is not approachable by anyone in this body. And beyond that non-manifested matter is the spiritual kingdom. That kingdom is described in the Bhagavad-Gita as supreme and eternal, never to be annihilated. This material nature is subjected to repeated creation and annihilation, but that part, the spiritual nature, remains as it is, eternally. The supreme abode of the personality of Godhead, Krishna, is also described in the Brahma Samhita as the abode of Chintamani. That abode of Lord Krishna, known as Goloka Vrindavan, is full of palaces made of touchstone. There the trees are called desire trees, and the cows are called Surabhi. The Lord is served there by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. His name is Govinda, the primeval Lord, and the cause of all causes. There the Lord plays his flute. His eyes are like lotus petals, and the color of his body is like that of a beautiful cloud. On his head is a peacock feather. He is so attractive that he excels thousands of cupids. Lord Krishna gives only a little hint in the Gita of his personal abode, which is the supermost planet in the spiritual kingdom. But in Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna actually appears with all his paraphernalia and demonstrates his activities in Vrindavan, then at Mathura, and then at Dwarka. The subject matter of this book will gradually reveal all these activities. The family in which Krishna appeared is called the Yadu dynasty. This Yadu dynasty belongs to the family descending from Soma, the god in the moon planet. There are two different Kshatriya families of the royal order, one descending from the king of the moon planet and the other descending from the king of the sun planet. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears, he generally appears in a Kshatriya family because he has to establish religious principles or the life of righteousness. The Kshatriya family is the protector of the human race according to the Vedic system. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared as Lord Ramachandra, he appeared in the family descending from the sun god, known as the Raghu Vamsa, and when he appeared as Lord Krishna, he did so in the family known as the Yadu Vamsa. There is a long list of kings of the Yadu Vamsa in the 9th canto, 24th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. All of them were great, powerful kings. Krishna's father's name was Vasudeva, son of Surashena, descending from the Yadu dynasty. Actually, the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not belong to any dynasty of this material world, but the family in which the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears becomes famous by his grace. For example, sandalwood is produced in the states of Malay. Sandalwood has its own qualifications apart from Malay, but because accidentally this wood is mainly produced in the states of Malay, it is known as Malayan sandalwood. Similarly, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, belongs to everyone, but just as the sun rises from the east, although there are other directions on which it could rise, so by his own choice the Lord appears in a particular family, and that family becomes famous. As explained above, when Krishna appears, all his plenary expansions appear with him. Krishna appeared along with Balarama, Baladev, who is known as his elder brother. Balaram is the origin of Sankarshan, of the quadruple expansion. Balaram is also the plenary expansion of Krishna. In this book, the attempt will be made to show how Krishna appeared in the family of the Yadu dynasty and how he displayed his transcendental characteristics. This is very vividly described in Srimad Bhagavatam, specifically the 10th canto, and thus the basis of this book will be the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The pastimes of the Lord are generally heard and relished by liberated souls. Those who are conditioned souls are interested in reading the stories of the material activities of some common man. Although similar narrations describing the transcendental activities of the Lord are found in Srimad Bhagavatam and other Puranas, the conditioned souls still prefer to study ordinary narrations. They are not so interested in studying the narrations of the pastimes of the Lord Krishna. And yet the descriptions of the pastimes of Lord Krishna are so attractive that they are relishable for all classes of men. There are 3 classes of men in this world. One class consists of liberated souls, another consists of those who are trying to be liberated, and the third consists of materialistic men. Whether one is liberated or is trying to be liberated, or is even grossly materialistic, the pastimes of Lord Krishna are worth studying. Liberated souls have no interest in materialistic activities. The impersonalist theory that after liberation one becomes inactive and need not hear anything does not prove that a liberated person is actually inactive. A living soul cannot be inactive. He is active either in the conditioned state or in the liberated state. A diseased person, for example, is also active, but his activities are all painful. The same person, when freed from the disease condition, is still active, but in the healthy condition, the activities are full of pleasure. Similarly, the impersonalists only seek to get free from the diseased, conditioned activities, but they have no information of the activities in the healthy condition. Those who are actually liberated and in full knowledge take to hearing the activities of Krishna. Such engagement is pure spiritual activity. It is essential for persons who are actually liberated to hear about the pastimes of Krishna. This is the supreme relishable subject matter for one in the liberated state. Also, if persons who are trying to be liberated hear such narrations as the Bhagavad-Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, then their path of liberation becomes very clear. The Bhagavad-Gita is the preliminary study of Srimad Bhagavatam. By studying the Gita, one becomes fully conscious of the position of Lord Krishna, and when he is situated at the lotus feet of Krishna, he understands the narrations of Krishna as described in Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Chaitanya has therefore advised his followers that their business is to propagate Krishna Katha. Krishna Katha means narrations about Krishna. There are 2 Krishna Kathas, one narration spoken by Krishna and narration spoken about Krishna. The Bhagavad-Gita is the narration or the philosophy on the science of God spoken by Krishna himself. Srimad Bhagavatam is a narration about the activities and transcendental pastimes of Krishna. Both are Krishna Katha. It is the order of Lord Chaitanya that Krishna Katha should be spread Krishna Katha should be spread all over the world, because if the conditioned souls suffering under the pangs of material existence take to Krishna Katha, then their path of liberation will be open and clear. The purpose of presenting this book is primarily to induce people to understand Krishna or Krishna Katha, because thereby they can become freed from material bondage. This Krishna Katha will be very much appealing to the most materialistic persons, because Krishna's pastimes with the gopis, that is the cowherd girls, are exactly like the loving affairs between young girls and boys within this material world. Actually, the sex feeling found in the human society is not unnatural, because the same sex feeling is there in the original personality of Godhead. The pleasure potency is called Srimati Radharani. The attraction of loving affairs on the basis of sex feeling is the original feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we, the conditioned souls, being part and parcel of the Supreme, have such feelings also, but they are experienced within a perverted, minute condition. Therefore, when those who are after sex life in this material world hear about Krishna's pastimes with the gopis, they will relish transcendental pleasure, although it appears to be materialistic. The advantage will be that they will gradually be elevated to the spiritual platform. In the Bhagavatam, it is stated that if one hears the pastimes of Lord Krishna with the gopis from authorities with submission, then he will be promoted to the platform of transcendental loving service to the Lord. and the material disease of lust within his heart will be completely vanquished. In other words, such hearing will counteract material sex life. This book, Krishna, which is filled with Krishna Katha, will thus appeal equally to the liberated souls and to persons who are trying to be liberated, as well as to the gross conditioned materialistic. According to the statement of Maharaj Pariksit, who heard about Krishna from Sukadeva Goswami, Krishna Katha is equally applicable to every human being, whatever condition of life he is in. Surely everyone will appreciate it to the highest magnitude. But Maharaj Pariksit also warned that persons who are simply engaged in killing animals and in killing themselves may not be very much attracted to Krishna Katha. In other words, ordinary persons who are following the regulative moral principles of scriptures, no matter in what condition they are found, will certainly be attracted, but not persons who are killing themselves. The exact word used in Srimad Bhagavatam is Pushugana, which means that one who is killing animals or killing himself. Persons who are not self-realized and who are not interested in spiritual realization are killing themselves. They are committing suicide. Because this human form of life is especially meant for self-realization, by neglecting this important part of his activities, one simply wastes his time like the animals. So he's a Pushagana. This other meaning of the word refers to those who are actually killing animals. This means persons who are animal eaters, that is, even dog eaters, for they are all engaged in killing animals in so many ways, such as hunting and opening slaughterhouses. Such persons cannot be interested in Krishna Katha. King Pariksit was especially interested in hearing Krishna Katha because he knew that his forefathers, particularly his grandfather Arjuna, were victorious in the great battle of Kurukshetra only because of Krishna. We may also take this material world as a battlefield of Kurukshetra. Everyone is struggling hard for existence on this battlefield, and at every step there is danger. According to Maharaj Pariksit, the battlefield of Kurukshetra was just like a vast ocean full of dangerous animals. His grandfather Arjuna had to fight with such great heroes as Bhishma, Drona, Karna, and many others who were not ordinary fighters. Such warriors have been compared to the Timingila fish in the ocean. The Timingila fish can very easily swallow up big whales. The great fighters on the battlefield of Kurukshetra could swallow many Arjunas very easily. But simply due to Krishna's mercy, Arjuna was able to kill all of them. Just as one can cross with no exertion over the little bit of water contained in the hoof print of a calf, so Arjuna, by the grace of Krishna, was able to very easily jump over the ocean of the battle of Kurukshetra. Maharaj Pariksit very much appreciated Krishna's activities for many other reasons. Not only was his grandfather saved by Krishna, but he himself was also saved by Krishna. By the end of the battle of Kurukshetra, all the members of the Kuru dynasty, both the sons and grandsons on the side of Dhritarashtra and those on the side of the Pandavas, had died in the fighting. Except the 5 Pandava brothers, everyone died on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Maharaj Pariksit was at that time within the womb of his mother. His father, Abhimanyu, the son of Arjuna, also died on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and so Maharaj Pariksit was also a posthumous child. When he was in the womb of his mother, a Brahmarastra weapon was released by Ashwatthama to kill the child. When Pariksit Maharaj's mother, Uttara, approached Krishna, seeing the danger of abortion, entered her womb as a super soul and saved Maharaj Pariksit. Maharaj Parikshit's other name is Vishnu-Ratha because he was saved by Lord Vishnu himself while still within the womb. Thus, everyone in any condition of life should be interested in hearing about Krishna and his activities, because he is the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. He is all-pervading. Inside, he is living within everyone's heart, and outside, he is living as his universal form. And yet, as described in the Bhagavad-Gita, he appears as he is in the human society, just to invite everyone to his transcendental abode, back home, back to Godhead. Everyone should be interested in knowing about Krishna, and this book is presented with this purpose, that people may know about Krishna and be perfectly benefited in this human form of life. In the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Baladev is described as a son of Rohini, a wife of Vasudeva. Vasudeva, the father of Krishna, had 16 wives, and one of them was Rohini, the mother of Baladev. But Baladev is also described as the son of Devaki. So how could he be the son of both Devaki and Rohini? This was one of the questions put by Maharaj Pariksit to Sukadeva Goswami, and it will be answered in due course. Maharaj Pariksit also asked Sukadeva Goswami why Sri Krishna, just after his appearance as the son of Vasudeva, was immediately carried to the house of Nanda Maharaj in Vrindavan, Gokula. He also wanted to know what the activities of Lord Krishna were while he was in Vrindavan and while he was in Mathura. Besides that, he was especially inquisitive to know why Krishna killed his maternal uncle, Kamsa. Kamsa, being the brother of his mother, was a very intimate superior to Krishna. So how was it that he killed Kamsa? Also, Maharaj Pariksit asked how many years Lord Krishna remained in human society, how many years he reigned over the kingdom of Dwarka, and how many wives he accepted there. A Kshatriya king is generally accustomed to accept more than one wife. Therefore, Maharaj Pariksit also inquired about his number of wives. The subject matter of this book is Sukadeva Goswami's answering of these and other questions asked by Maharaj Pariksit. The position of Maharaj Pariksit and Sukadeva Goswami is unique. Maharaj Pariksit is the right person to hear about the transcendental pastimes of Krishna, and Sukadeva Goswami is the right person to describe them. If such a fortunate combination is made possible, then Krishna Katha immediately becomes revealed, and people may benefit to the highest possible degree from such a conversation. This narration was presented by Sukadeva Goswami when Maharaj Pariksit was prepared to give up his body, fasting on the bank of the Ganges. In order to assure Sukadeva Goswami that by hearing Krishna Katha he would not feel tired, Maharaj Pariksit expressed himself very frankly. Hunger and thirst may give trouble to ordinary persons or to me, but the topics of Krishna are so nice that one can continue to hear them without feeling tired, because such hearings situates one in the transcendental position. It is understood that one must be very fortunate to hear Krishna Katha as seriously as Maharaj Pariksit did. He was especially intent on the subject matter because he was expecting death at any moment. Every one of us should be conscious of death at every moment. This life is not at all assured. At any time one can die. It does not matter whether one is a young man or an old man. So before death takes place, we must be fully Krishna conscious. At the point of his death, King Pariksit was hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from Sukadeva Goswami. When King Pariksit expressed his untiring desire to hear about Krishna, Sukadeva Goswami was very much pleased. Sukadeva was the greatest of all Bhagavad-Gita reciters, and thus he began to speak about Krishna's pastimes, which destroy all inauspiciousness in this age of Kali. Sukadeva Goswami thanked the king for his eagerness to hear about Krishna, and he encouraged him by saying, "My dear king, your intelligence is very keen because you are so eager to hear about the pastimes of Krishna." He informed Maharaj Pariksit that hearing and chanting the names of Krishna are so auspicious that the process purifies the three varieties of men involved. He who recites the transcendental topics of Krishna, he who hears such topics, and he who inquires about him. These pastimes are just like the Ganges water, which flows from the toad to Lord Vishnu. They purify the three worlds, the upper, middle, and lower planetary systems.
Thank you. So this is Srila Prabhupada's introduction to the Krishna book. After offering obeisances, he outlines the subject matter of the book. And his introduction covers actually the first 16 verses of the first chapter of the 10th canto. And so chapter 1 actually begins from text 17. Are there any questions so far? Yes.
Hare Krishna. It's maybe a small thing. It was in the beginning of the text that was written unmanifest matter. I was wondering, is that the same as pradhan, or what do they mean by that?
Let's see where we are. Where are you reading? Where it says that Krishna is beyond manifest and unmanifest matter, Bhagavad-Gita, that and the spiritual world is beyond manifest and unmanifest, is that what it's saying? Yeah. Parastasmatu bhavo bhavanya vyakto vyaktat sanatana. Yeah. The material world is sometimes manifest and sometimes not manifest. When it's not manifest, then you have the total material energy. Yeah, that's all right. There's beyond the unmanifest matter, there's the impersonal spirit, and then beyond that, there's the spiritual kingdom. Yeah, is that all right?
So is it the same as pradhan?
Yeah.
Unmanifest matter? Okay.
Anything else? Yes.
Hare Krishna. At the beginning, it says, for affairs of the material creation, Lord Mahavishnu, the plenary portion of Krishna, is in charge. Thus, when the Lord descends, the incarnation emanates from Vishnu. So I was just a bit confused about that.
Yeah, it appears from what Srila Prabhupada is saying that Krishna appears from Vishnu. But even if it's taken that he appears from Vishnu, you might call it a pass-through. He's the origin, and he can appear from anywhere. He appears from a pillar, he appears from the nostril of Brahma, he appears from wherever he wants to appear. But he's still the origin of everything. Is that okay? Yeah. All right. Shall we begin chapter 1? All right, let's begin.
Chapter 1, the Advent of Lord Krishna. Once the world was overburdened by the unnecessary defense force of different kings who were actually demons, but were posing themselves as a royal order.
That I'm going to comment on. Just I won't comment line by line, but such an important point that once the world was overburdened by the unnecessary defense force of different kings who were actually demons but were posing as the royal order. That was the situation when Lord Krishna came, and that's the situation he came to remedy. And we have to note that today we have a similar situation with unnecessary defense forces built up by demonic rulers who are posing as kings and presidents and prime ministers and what have you of democratic states or other kinds of states. But the extent to which they're demonic is largely not understood. They're generally understood to be sort of mischief makers, unnecessary botheration, clowns, or pickpockets. But or as actual sincere workers for world peace and all of that. The extent to which they're demonic is largely not understood. The depth of, because demonic is something other than incapable, incompetent, greedy, and so on. It runs much deeper than that. And so this same circumstance exists today. Those who wish can read my essay touching on this, 9/11. What is it? A distant view of 9/11, which talks about that. I did a PowerPoint presentation one time, 9/11 and the divine and demonic natures. That goes deeper into the subject, but we will not divert ourselves with such things here. As we were hearing in the introduction, people are very much interested in hearing about ordinary men, but we want to hear about Krishna.
At that time, the whole world became perturbed, and the predominating deity of this earth, known as Bhumi, went to see Lord Brahma to tell her of her calamities due to the demonic kings. Bhumi assumed the shape of a cow and presented herself before Lord Brahma with tears in her eyes. She was bereaved and was weeping just to invoke the Lord's compassion. She related the calamitous position of the earth, and after hearing this, Lord Brahma became much aggrieved, and he at once started for the ocean of milk, where Lord Vishnu resides. Lord Brahma was accompanied by all the demigods, headed by Lord Shiva, and Bhumi also followed. Arriving on the shore of the milk ocean, Lord Brahma began to pacify Lord Vishnu, who had formerly saved the earthly planet by assuming the transcendental form of a bull. In the Vedic mantras, there is a particular type of prayer called the Purusha Shukta. Generally, the demigods offer their obeisances unto Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by chanting the Purusha Sukta. It is understood herein that the predominating deity of every planet can see the Supreme Lord of this universe, Brahma, whenever there is some disturbance on his planet. And Brahma can approach the Supreme Lord Vishnu, not by seeing him directly, but by standing on the shore of the ocean of milk. There is a planet within this universe called Svetwadvipa, and on that planet there is an ocean of milk. It is understood from various Vedic literatures that just as there is an ocean of salt water on this planet, there are also various kinds of oceans on other planets. Somewhere there is an ocean of milk, somewhere there is an ocean of oil, and somewhere there are oceans of liquor and many other types of liquids. The Purusha Shukta is a standard prayer which the demigods recite to appease the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shri Dakshaya Vishnu, Because he is lying on the ocean of milk, he is called Shirodhakshaya Vishnu. He is the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, through whom all the incarnations within this universe appear. After all the demigods offered the Purusha Shukta prayer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they apparently heard no response. Then Lord Brahma personally sat in meditation, and there was a message transmission from Lord Vishnu to Brahma. Brahma then broadcast the message to the demigods. That is the system of receiving Vedic knowledge. The Vedic knowledge is received first by Brahma from the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the medium of the heart. As stated in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, Tena Brahma Hirdaya Adi Kavaya. The transcendental knowledge of the Vedas was transmitted to Lord Brahma through the heart. Here also, in the same way, only Brahma could understand the message transmitted by Lord Vishnu, and he broadcast it to the demigods for their immediate action. The message was this: the Supreme Personality of Godhead would appear on the earth very soon, along with his supreme powerful potencies, and as long as he remained on the earth planet to execute his mission of annihilating the demons and establishing the devotees, the demigods should also remain there to assist him. They should all immediately take birth in the family of the Yadu dynasty, wherein the Lord would also appear in due course of time. The Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, Krishna, would personally appear as the son of Vasudeva. Before his appearance, all the demigods, along with their wives, should appear in the different pious families in the world just to assist the Lord in executing his mission. The exact word used here is tat priyartham, which means the demigods should appear on the earth in order to please the Lord. In other words, any living entity who lives only to satisfy the Lord is a demigod. The demigods were further informed that Ananta, the plenary portion of Lord Krishna, who was maintaining the universal planets by extending his millions of hoods, would also appear on earth before Lord Krishna's appearance. They were also informed that the external potency of Vishnu, that is Maya, with whom all the conditioned souls are enamored, would also appear by the order of the Supreme Lord, just to execute his purpose. After instructing and pacifying all the demigods, as well as Bhumi, with sweet words, Lord Brahma, the father of all Prajapatis, or progenitors of the universal population, departed for his own abode, the highest material planet called Brahma Loka. The leader of the Yadu dynasty, King Surashena, was also ruling over the country known as Mathura, wherein lies the city of Mathura, as well as the district known as Surashena, which was named after him. On account of the rule of King Surashena, Mathura became the capital city of all the kings of the Yadus. Mathura was also made the capital city of the kings of the Yadu dynasty, because the Yadus were a very pious family and knew that Mathura is the place where Lord Shri Krishna lives eternally, just as he also lives in Dwarka. Once upon a time, Vasudeva, the son of Surashena, just after marrying Devaki, was going home on his chariot with his newly wedded wife. The father of Devaki, known as Devaka, had contributed a sufficient dowry because he was very affectionate towards his daughter. He had contributed hundreds of chariots completely decorated with gold equipment. At that time, Kamsa, the son of Ugrasena, in order to please his sister, Devaki, had voluntarily taken the reins of the horses of Vasudeva's chariot and was driving. According to the custom of Vedic civilization, when a girl is married, the brother takes the sister and brother-in-law to their home. Because the newly married girl may feel too much separation from her father's family, the brother goes with her until she reaches her father-in-law's house. The full dowry contributed by Devaka was as follows: 400 elephants fully decorated with golden garlands, 15,000 decorated horses, and 1,800 chariots. He also arranged for 200 beautiful girls to follow his daughter. The Kshatriya system of marriage, still current in India, dictates that when a Kshatriya is married, a few dozen of the bride's young girlfriends, that is in addition to the bride, go to the house of the king. The followers of the queen are called maidservants, but actually they act as friends of the queen. This practice is prevalent from time immemorial, traceable at least to the time before the advent of Lord Krishna 5,000 years ago. So Vasudeva brought home another 200 beautiful girls along with his wife Devaki. While the bride and bridegroom were passing along the chariot, there were different kinds of musical instruments playing to indicate the auspicious moment. There were conch shells, bungles, drums, and kettle drums combined together. They were vibrating a nice concert. The procession was passing by very pleasingly, and Kamsa was driving the chariot, when suddenly there was a miraculous sound vibrated from the sky, which especially announced to Kamsa, "Kamsa, you are such a fool. You are driving the chariot of your sister and your brother-in-law, but you do not know that the eighth child of the sister will kill you." Kamsa was the son of Ugrasena of the Bhoja dynasty. It is said that Kamsa was the most demonic of all the Bhoja dynasty kings. Immediately after hearing the prophecy from the sky, he caught hold of Devaki's hair and was just about to kill her with his sword. Vasudeva was astonished at Kamsa's behavior, and in order to pacify the cruel, shameless brother-in-law, he began to speak as follows with great reason and evidence. He said, "My dear brother-in-law Kamsa, you are the most famous king of the Bhoja dynasty, and people know that you are the greatest warrior and a valiant king. How is it that you are so infuriated that you are prepared to kill a woman who is your own sister at this auspicious time of her marriage? Why should you be so much afraid of death? Death is already born along with your birth, and from the day you took your birth, you began to die. Suppose you are 25 years old. That means you've already died 25 years. Every moment, every second, you are dying. Why then should you be so much afraid of death? Final death is inevitable. You may die either today or in 100 years. You cannot avoid death. Why should you be so much afraid? Actually, death means annihilation of the present body. As soon as the present body stops functioning and mixes with the 5 elements of material nature, the living entity within the body accepts another body according to his present actions and reactions. It is just like when a man walks in the street, he puts forward his foot, and when he is confident that his foot is situated on sound ground, he lifts the other foot. In this way, one after another, the bodies change and the soul transmigrates. See how the plant worms change from one twig to another so carefully. Similarly, the living entity changes his body as soon as the higher authorities decide on his next body. As long as a living entity is conditioned within this material world, he must take material bodies one after another. His next particular body is offered by the laws of nature, according to the actions and reactions of this life. This body is exactly like the one of the bodies which we always see in dreams. During our dream of sleep, we create so many bodies according to mental creation. We have seen gold, and we have also seen a mountain. So in a dream, we can see a golden mountain by combining the two ideas. Sometimes in dreams, we see that we have a body which is flying in the sky, and at that time, we completely forget our present body. Similarly, these bodies are changing. When you have one body, you forget the past body. During a dream, we may make contact with so many new kinds of bodies, but when we are awake, we forget them all. And actually, these material bodies are the creations of our mental activities. But at the present moment, we do not recollect our past bodies. The nature of the mind is flickering. Sometimes it accepts something, and immediately it rejects the same thing. Accepting and rejecting is the process of the mind in contact with the 5 objects of sense gratification. That is form, taste, smell, sound and touch. It is in its speculative way, the mind comes in touch with the objects of the sense gratification. And when the living entity desires a particular type of body, he gets it. Therefore, the body is an offering by the laws of material nature. The living entity accepts her body and comes out again into the material world to enjoy or suffer according to the construction of the body. Unless we have a particular type of body, we cannot enjoy or suffer according to our mental proclivities inherited from the previous life. The particular type of body is actually offered to us according to our mental condition at the time of death. The luminous planets like the sun, moon, or stars reflect themselves in different types of reservoirs, like water, oil, or ghee. The reflection moves according to the movement of the reservoir. The reflection of the moon is on the water, and the moving water makes the moon also appear to be moving. But actually, the moon is not moving. Similarly, by mental concoction, the living entity attains different kinds of bodies, although actually has no connection with such bodies. But on account of illusion, being enchanted by the influence of Maya, the living entity thinks that he belongs to a particular type of body. That is the way of conditioned life. Suppose a living entity is now in a human form of body. He thinks that he belongs to the human community, or particular country, or particular place. He identifies himself in that way, and unnecessarily prepares for another body, which is not required by him. Such desires and mental concoctions are the cause of different types of bodies. The covering influence of material nature is so strong that the living entity is satisfied in whatever body he gets, and he identifies with that body with great pleasure. Therefore, I beg to request you not to be overwhelmed by the dictation of your mind and body. Vasudeva thus requested Kamsa not to be envious of his newly married sister. One should not be envious of anyone, because envy is the cause of fear both in this world and in the next. When one is before Yamaraj, the Lord of punishment after death. Vasudeva appealed to Kamsa on behalf of Devaki, stating that she was his younger sister. He also appealed at an auspicious moment, at the time of marriage. A younger sister or brother is supposed to be protected as one's child. The position is overall so delicate, Vasudeva reasoned, that if you kill her, it will go against your high reputation. In this way, Vasudeva tried to pacify Kamsa by good instruction as well as by philosophical discrimination. But Kamsa was not to be pacified because his association was demonic. Because of his demonic association, he was a demon, although born in a very high royal family. A demon never cares for any good instruction. He is just like a determined thief. One can give him moral instruction, but it will not be effective. Similarly, those who are demonic or atheistic by nature can hardly assimilate any good instruction, however authorized it may be. That is the difference between demigods and demons. Those who can accept good instruction and try to live their lives in that way are called demigods, and those who are unable to take such good instruction are called demons. Failing in his attempt to pacify Kamsa, Vasudeva wondered how he would protect his wife, Devaki. When there is imminent danger, an intelligent person should try to avoid the dangerous position as far as possible. But if, in spite of endeavoring by all intelligence, one fails to avoid the dangerous position, there is no fault on his part. One should try his best to execute his duties, but if the attempt fails, he is not at fault. Vasudeva thought of his wife as follows: For the present, let me save the life of Devaki. Then later on, if there are children, I shall see how to save them. He further thought, if in the future I get a child who can kill Kamsa, just as Kamsa is thinking, then both Devaki and the child will be saved because the law of providence is inconceivable. But now, some way or the other, let me save the life of Devaki. There is no certainty how a living entity contacts a certain type of body. Just as there is no certainty how a blazing fire comes in contact with a certain type of wood in the forest. When there is a forest fire, it is experienced that the blazing fire sometimes leaps over one tree and catches another by the influence of the wind. Similarly, a living entity may be very careful in the matter of executing his duties, but it is still very difficult for him to know what type of body he is going to get in the next life. Maharaj Bharata was very faithfully executing the duties of self-realization, and by chance he developed temporary affection for a deer, and in his next life he had to accept the body of a deer. Vasudeva, after deliberating on how to save his wife, began to speak to Kamsa with great respect, although Kamsa was the most sinful man. Sometimes it happens that a most virtuous person like Vasudeva has to flatter a person like Kamsa, a most vicious person. That is the way of all diplomatic transactions. Although Vasudeva was deeply aggrieved, he smiled outwardly. He addressed the shameless Kamsa in that way because he was so atrocious. Vasudeva said to Kamsa, "My dear brother-in-law, please consider that you have no danger from your sister. You are awaiting some danger because you have heard a prophetic voice in the sky. But the danger is to come from the sons of your sister who are not present now. And who knows, there may or may not be sons in the future. Considering all this, you are safe for the present, nor is there cause of fear from your sister. If there are any sons born of her, I promise that I shall present all of them to you for necessary action." Kamsa knew the value of Vasudeva's word of honor, and he was convinced by his argument. For the time being, he desisted from the heinous killing of his sister. Thus Vasudeva was pleased and praised the decision of Kamsa. In this way he returned to his home. Each year thereafter, in due course of time, Devaki gave birth to a child. Thus she gave birth to 8 male children, and as well as 1 daughter. When the first son was born, Vasudeva kept his word of honor and immediately brought the child before Kamsa. It is said that Vasudeva was very much elevated and famous for his word of honor, and he wanted to maintain this fame. Although it was very painful for Vasudeva to hand over the newly born child, Kamsa was very glad to receive him. But he became a little compassionate with the behavior of Vasudeva. This event is very exemplary. For a great soul like Vasudeva, there is nothing considered to be painful in the course of discharging one's duty. A learned person like Vasudeva carries out his duties without hesitation. On the other hand, a demon like Kamsa never hesitates in committing any abominable action. It is said, therefore, that a saintly person can tolerate all kinds of miserable conditions of life. A learned man can discharge his duties without awaiting favorable circumstances, and a heinous person like Kamsa can act in any sinful way, and a devotee can sacrifice everything to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Kamsa became satisfied by the action of Vasudeva. He was surprised to see Vasudeva keeping his promise, and being compassionate upon him and pleased, he began to speak as follows: "My dear Vasudeva, you need not present this child to me. I am not in danger from this child. I have heard that the 8th child born of you and Devaki will kill me. Why should I accept this child unnecessarily? You can take him back." When Vasudeva was returning home with his firstborn child, although he was pleased by the behavior of Kamsa, he could not believe in him because he knew that Kamsa was uncontrolled. An atheistic person cannot be firm in his word of honor. One who cannot control the senses cannot be steady in his determination. The great politician Chanakya Pandita said, "Never put your trust in a diplomat or a woman. Those who are addicted to unrestricted sense gratification can never be truthful, nor can they be trusted with any faith." At that time, the great sage Narada came to Kamsa. He was informed of Kamsa's becoming compassionate to Vasudeva and returning his firstborn child. Narada was very eager to accelerate the descent of Lord Krishna as soon as possible. He therefore informed Kamsa that in Vrindavan personalities like Nanda Maharaj and all the other cowherd men and their wives and on the other side Vasudeva, his father Surashena, and all his relatives born in the family of Vrishni of the Yadav dynasty, along with all their friends and well-wishers, were actually demigods. Narada wanted Kamsa to be careful of them, since Kamsa and his friends and advisors were all demons. Demons are always afraid of demigods. After thus being informed by Narada about the appearance of the demigods in different families, Kamsa at once became very much alarmed. He understood that since the demigods had already appeared, Lord Vishnu must be coming soon. He at once arrested both his brother-in-law Vasudeva and Devaki and put them behind prison bars. Within the prison, shackled in iron chains, Vasudeva and Devaki gave birth to a male child year after year, and Kamsa, thinking each of the babies to be the incarnation of Vishnu, killed them one after another. He was particularly afraid of the 8th child, but after the visit of Narada, he came to the conclusion that any child might be Krishna. Therefore, it was better to kill all the babies who took birth from Devaki and Vasudeva. This action of Kamsa is not very difficult to understand. In the history of the world, there are many instances in the history of the world of persons in the royal order who have killed their father, brother, or whole family and friends for the satisfaction of their ambitions. There is nothing astonishing about this, for the members of the demoniac, greedy royal order can kill anyone for their nefarious ambitions. Kamsa was made aware of his previous birth by the grace of Narada. He learned that in his previous birth he had been a demon of the name Kalanemi, and that he had been killed by Vishnu. Having now taken his birth in the Bodha family, he decided to become the deadly enemy of the Yadav dynasty. Krishna was going to take birth in that family, and Kamsa was very much afraid that he would be killed by Krishna, just as he has been killed in his last birth. He first of all imprisoned his father, Ugrasena, because he was the chief king among the Yadu, Bhoja and Andaka dynasties, and he also occupied the kingdom of Surashena, Vasudeva's father. He declared himself the king of all such places. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the first chapter of Krishna, the advent of Lord Krishna.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Yes. Can you elaborate on the difference between, we see like Kamsa, he was very determined in his purpose and action, and we see that great devotees, they have very great ambitions. So can you speak about the difference between the determination of a great devotee and the determination of one who is selfish, maybe? Or
that's described in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita. There's 3 kinds of determination. Determination in goodness, determination in passion, and determination in ignorance. So now let's see. Trityaya dharyate mana pranendriya kriyaha yogena vyabhicharinya dhriti sa partha sattviki. Trityaya dharyate, the determination which is sustained, mana pranendriya kriyaha, through the activities of the senses, the mind, and the life here. Yogena vyabhicharinya, which is steady, unfailing. Maybe you can find that's determination in goodness. Text 33. Krishna, Krishna. Yeah. That determination which is unbreakable, avyabhicharini, sustained with steadfastness by yoga practice, and which thus controls the activities of the mind, life, and senses. That's determination and goodness. And then yayatu dharma kamartan dritya dhariyaterjana prasangena palakankshi Triti Sapartha Rajasi. But the determination by which one holds fast to fruitive activities in religion, economic development, and sense gratification. Palakankshi, that's the essential word. It's for the sake of getting something. Dharma, karma, artha, in the realm of economic development, sense gratification, and dharma. Prasangena, because of attachment. That's determination in passion. And in Yaya swapnam bhayam shokam vishadam madamevacha na vimunchiti durameta driti sapartha tamasi. In ignorance, one can't go beyond dreaming, fear, lamentation, moroseness, illusion. That unintelligent determination is in passion, in ignorance. So the materialist is determined. The person maybe you don't want to do the rubric cube thing right now. Might be a little distracting. It's definitely distracting. So the materialists are determined when they're in passion, because they're determined, I got to get that girl, I got to get that money, I got to close this deal, I got to get that house, they're full of determination for material achievements. For sense gratification. But the devotees, they have steady determination without attachment. And the devotees, they have determination because they're attached to Krishna. Is that okay? You look like you're not sure.
How much is it beneficial to bring our passions into trying to achieve devotional? I mean, how much is it devotional? But let's say I want to finish that book in such an amount of time. Or a classical example is I want to distribute so many books in one day.
That's good. There's no limit to the determination you can exercise for Krishna's service. If you want to build temples or write books or distribute books or whatever it is, it's very good. But it shouldn't be for one's own sense gratification. It should be for Krishna's pleasure. Here you go. Is that okay? Hare Krishna.
How the arrangement that Narada Muni is doing is actually helping the faster development of the situation?
How is it helping?
Yes.
He's always moving the action along.
To me it looks like that, okay, again Vasudeva and Devaki, they would have their children, and again basically the things would go on. Like he went and he spoke with Kamsa.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot understand how this is moving the things.
Narada speaking to Kamsa.
Yeah.
Kamsa sees that the danger is is imminent. Krishna is there. He can cause so much trouble. So he ratchets up his atrocities. In your previous birth, you were Kalanemi, you were killed by Vishnu. Now he's going to take birth again, and he'll kill you again. So, with that understanding, Ugrasena becomes not Ugrasena. Kamsa becomes more aggressive, and so that aggression moves events forward in the narrative or in the history.
Someone may say, because of that, some of the devotees of Krishna, they were put into difficulty. Like, for example, Devaki and Vasudeva, they were put in the prison and so on and so on.
Yeah, well, that's moving things forward. All of this is meant to happen. Devaki gets her children killed, they get put in prison, all to move forward Krishna's purpose. So it may seem that the devotees are suffering, but they're playing a role for the sake of Krishna's pastimes. Is that okay? Yes. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, when do you know that something is sense gratification or is for Krishna's service?
Start again.
Okay. When do you know something is for Krishna's service or something is for your own sense gratification?
You know. Generally you know. And maybe you tell yourself sort of a lie, that I need this new Tesla for Krishna's service. But deep down you know. And if you don't know, then you can ask the spiritual master and he'll tell you. Or the devotees, senior devotees. Also, it helps to be reflective. If you read the Shastras, you read the books and you think about it, then you start applying it to your own decision making. If we just read the books, in a, obligatory fashion, then we may not get it. Still, we'll get something. But if we read the books carefully, thinking, how does this apply to me? Then you get a lot of insight, and that helps you see when something's for sense gratification and when something is for Krishna. Is that okay? Yes. We're actually out of time, but go ahead.
Is there something like sometimes sense gratification and Krishna's gratification, they are clearly separable, and sometimes they go hand in hand? Is it like
That's
that?
Fine. If you get sense gratification by serving Krishna, there's no objection. Not that your senses have to suffer. Your senses may sometimes be pleased and sometimes may be displeased. So the devotee works either way. If my senses are uncomfortable, well, still I have to do it. And if my senses get some comfort or some pleasure, still I have to do it. But the consideration is, what will please Krishna? Okay. Shall we have kirtan? Okay.
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare